Now that the Quad has been declared an informal grouping rather than NATO's Indo-Pacific equivalent, India essentially remains without a formal military or strategic alliance. There are a couple of trilateral agreements like Indonesia, Japan, and India, and the other one is Japan, India, and Australia. But these are insufficient for meeting the Chinese threats from land, air, and sea. For the simple reason that these arrangements are informal. These agreements or arrangements do not put any obligation on any partner to militarily uh, come forward to support the other partner. Even Vietnam is not India's ally, although both countries are on the same page concerning China. Going by the Afghanistan experience, we cannot count on Americans or other Western powers for any meaningful strategic support in case hostilities break out. India will have to go it alone if Pakistan and China decide to have a confrontation with India or they attack India. The only genuine ally India ever had was the Soviet Union, which enabled us, or rather India, to liberate Bangladesh despite military pressures from China and America. When the Bangladesh war was going on, China had made certain noises on the northern borders, but it did not dare to invade. Similarly, Americans sent in their seventh fleet, I think, yes, seventh fleet to intimidate India, but the Russian fleet was just following them. So no liberties were taken with the Indian sovereignty by Americans. But the Soviet Union is history now. Its successor, that is Russia, is now an ally of China. India might be able to buy military hardware from Russia and even benefit from mid range technological transfers, but cannot expect Russia to become its all weather friend, as it used to be. Similarly, we can buy submarines and other military hardware from France, but cannot expect them to become active strategic allies. India's position becomes all the more precarious when we look at the South Asian scenario. The SARC is virtually dead. It had the potential of turning into an economic powerhouse with strategic advantages for all the members, not just for India. But thanks to the trust deficit among its members, SARC is no more a workable proposition. It is as good as disintegrating. Hardly, even recently, even at the sidelines of UNGA, the meeting was to be held, some sort of meeting, but it was cancelled. We may blame China or Pakistan for their mischief in this regard, but India will have to bear its share of the blame too, because India is the largest country in South Asia, and the onus lies on India to see that SARC works. In the last few years, China has made deep inroads into India's backyard. Backyard means our neighborhood. Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Maldives are now the dragon's client estates. Burma is already in its camp. Bangladesh looks askance at India's domestic policies involving Muslims and may well respond positively to Chinese overtures as insurance against possible Indian belligerence. Bhutan is with India not out of love but because it fears China more. Pakistan is in turmoil but firmly in the grip of anti-India forces nurtured by Pakistan and China. Let us not forget that China is enabling Pakistan to become a major player in South Asia to keep India's aspirations in check. China does not want India to emerge as a major global power. The only silver lining right now is how India has begun to counter China's debt trap policy in Sri Lanka. But this needs to be built upon assiduously to regain the trust of our neighboring countries. Well, what is this debt trap policy? What China does is it gives generous loans to a country which is weaker or poorer or both, and then sets certain conditions which enables China to have access to that country's strategic assets. It has done so in Burma, it has done so in Sri Lanka, and even other smaller countries. Pakistan, of course, is a major victim of China's debt trap policy. There is an urgent need to recalibrate India's worldview, which is guided by the Nagpur brand of domestic politics. Whatever international goodwill India had earned under the prime ministerships of Nehru, Indira Gandhi, Vajpayee, and Manmohan Singh has now dissipated considerably. They looked at the world through a secular prism. Even Vajpayee ji, he, whatever be his party's agenda or ideology, Vajpayee ji knew that if he has to run the country and the international politics, liberal democracy, liberalism has to be the mainstay of India's ethos. Ideology mattered, but India's interests were kept supreme. So, India benefited as much from the socialist world as from the capitalist countries while retaining its unique identity as a shining beacon of liberal democracy in the topsy turvy third world. Now, the third world does not exist after the fall of Soviet Union. Now, this is an obsolete term. Nobody uses it now, and it has even lost its relevance. The government needs to reverse the steady slide into illiberalism with unmistakable totalitarian features. I'm speaking domestically. Another challenge that needs to be met is the eradication of corruption and the rise of crony capitalism. Only then can we hope to see the resumption of foreign investment in India's industrial and tertiary sectors. We cannot afford the capital from India migrating to other countries. The recent closure of business in India by the Ford Motor Company should be a wake up call. It was not a major loss in terms of capital loss, but it hits the headlines, and its value as a headline grabber is definitely going to hurt our image. India needs to bring the economic growth back on track. With China regressing into the anti capitalist mindset, there is every chance of the big business houses looking at India as a promising destination for their investments. Now, what is happening in China is that the Politburo over there, it has started looking suspiciously at the big business houses. The recent example of Jack Ma, who has been cut down to size and he is no more. He was almost constantly under media limelight. Now, we do not know where he stands at the moment or where he is actually. If Qualcomm decides to move to India, for instance, the economic and technological spin offs would be immense, in economic terms, especially, and technological also. And there are several such MNCs, multinational companies, which are headquartered in Japan, the USA, Singapore, Taiwan, and South Korea that may follow suit if it succeeds, if that trend begins. But, and this is a big but, India needs to get rid of the formidable red tape and the all pervading corruption. Then there is the issue of chief ministers running amok in their states. In Uttar Pradesh, police appear to have the license to kill anybody and play havoc with rules of law. This reflects poorly on the country's image as a constitutional democracy where the rule of law is actually supposed to be supreme. It is. But what is happening in Uttar Pradesh, we have seen how, right from the Hathras case to the recent one, where a BJP member himself was murdered at midnight in a hotel by policemen. What were the reasons? What made them go there and do this uh, crime? Nobody knows it. Nobody knows why. Once this negative image catches on, there will be adverse implications for industrial and economic growth of India on an unprecedented scale. Equally important is the sorting out of the extra governmental elements interfering in India's domestic and economic policies. Mindless jingoistic campaigns may fetch the BJP a few votes but will project India's image as an intolerant and unstable polity. We have seen what happened recently when uh, Mr. Modi went to USA and how both Mr. Biden and Miss Kamala Harris, they talked of democracy, strengthening of democracy and democratic institutions, and also referred to Mahatma Gandhi, something that should not have happened ordinarily. If the semi-official media outlets like Organizer and Panchajanya, I call them semi-government because semi-official because they belong to Panchajanya, to BJP, and well, BJP is in power. And if these outlets keep threatening prestigious Indian corporates like Infosys by calling it as anti-national, and MNCs like Amazon as East India Company Mark II, as if they have come to colonize India, which is not true. We can kiss goodbye to the dreams of becoming a major economic and military power. We are not supposed to behave in this manner, whatever be the domestic compulsions of a particular political party. But then that difference between party interests and national interests have not yet been understood by our ruling elite of the day. They still think that they are in the opposition. They can say anything irresponsibly. Let us not forget that until a few years back, India's double digit economic growth was expected to enable India to equal, if not overtake, the Chinese economy in a couple of decades. Yes, we were going 11%, 12%, and above. But demonetization and subsequent economic mismanagement and the coronavirus pandemic, of course, it really hit us hard, sent the Indian economy into a tailspin. For the first time, it registered negative growth. Our GDP growth turned negative. Unemployment shot up to unprecedented peaks. Even now, it is very high. Lessons should not only be learned, but better informed policy decisions need to be taken to accelerate India's economic growth and development. India must secure its backyard. By backyard, I mean our neighboring neighborhood, our neighboring countries. With the US forces abandoning Afghanistan to its fate, it is an open season for various terror groups in the subcontinent. It will not be there, not only from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and God knows from where else. China and Pakistan will certainly exploit the situation to their advantage, or they will at least try to do so, thinking that they can handle these uh, misguided missiles to their advantage and hurt India. However, the Afghanistan based terror groups may step up their activities to destabilize Pakistan also, thus making China's underbelly more vulnerable than it already is. China's underbelly, I refer to Xinjiang province, which is a Muslim majority state and where Uyghurs are already rebelling against the Beijing government. This in turn may create an unforeseen situation for India and other countries in the region. We do not know what would be the reaction of China to if such a thing happens, and we do not know how things will pan out eventually. India needs to be prepared in advance for any such eventuality. First, we need to fill up the fault lines within. Bigotry and intolerance in domestic politics have adversely affected our foreign policy. So it has become imperative for India to go back to the ideals espoused by the founding fathers of our constitution. If India wants to be respected as a powerful and stable democracy, there is no other way other than following the constitution in letter as well as spirit. This will certainly provide the much needed ballast to our diplomatic efforts towards reviving cordial relations with the neighboring countries. Economic cooperation, why I am emphasizing again and again on neighboring countries. If your backyard is secure, if you have got more than friendly ties with your neighbors, your stature internationally automatically grows. You're secure. You don't have any disputes with your neighbors. So that part of the energy you can invest in more constructive things globally as well as domestically. So that is how India can raise its stature. Economic cooperation can take the shape of joint ventures in such areas as tourism, high-tech and agriculture-based industries. Pakistan needs to be made to understand that its real interests lie with South Asian cooperation rather than hitching up to the one foreign power or another. It was United States earlier, now it is China, which has actually done immense harm to its economy, polity and civil society at large. In fact, this is a typical characteristic of this subcontinent's ruling elites, right from at least medieval ages, that whether it was Mir Jafar or a Jaichand or many others, they somehow preferred to align with the Raja Ambi, right from ancient times, who aligned with Alexander against Porus. So these people forgot or rather ignored the fact that they are actually enabling a foreign power to establish itself in India and exploit the people of India. On the military front, although India has been encouraging private sector participation in the production of military hardware, much more needs to be done. The poor economic performance and lagging defense production have forced India to acquire older MiG-29s, Mirage 2000s and Arjuna tanks. Arjuna tanks are not really old, but despite the recent upgradation in its various weapon systems, etc., it is an obsolete tank. It is going towards becoming obsolete. And as far as Mirage 2000 and MiG-29s, they are very good aircraft. But now there are better weapon systems, better platforms available. Because obviously something has gone wrong with our modernization plans, which is unforgivable under the circumstances. We cannot afford this. We don't need mere modern weapon systems, but futuristic platforms too for conducting wars on land, sea, air, space and even cyberspace. Yes, cyberspace is now the most sought after battlefield. I should not use sought after, but then it is the most happening battlefield right now. Almost every country worth its salt is investing in high-tech methods of controlling cyberspace. We need to invest in high-tech research and development. Moreover, India needs to leverage its potential as a lucrative market to establish joint ventures for the production of such platforms. There should be no dearth of willing partners. There are many who would like to partner India for manufacture or building of such platforms, both high-tech as well as those weapon systems, etc. Israel, France, Sweden, and the USA among the traditional suppliers of weapon systems, and Japan among the rising ones come to mind readily. Russia is already engaged in several joint projects in the manufacturing of missile systems and I think even aircraft. South Korea, France, and Great Britain, along with Russia, are potential partners for the production of submarines and various types of warships. And we need those kind of joint ventures. India needs a political leadership with a strong commitment to building a modern, secular, stable, and powerful polity, where science and technology will not be subjugated by dangerously regressive mindsets which guide the actions of certain influential segments of the present government. We all know who they are. You can see them on our TV debates and even advertisements and God knows where. Those people, they are really making us a laughing stock of the world. We don't need Jumla spouters and self-styled gurus to run our country. We need leaders with a truly scientific mindset and a vision untainted by parochialism and jingoism. The Nehruvian approach to the idea of India is still a wise, pragmatic, and principled path. We must not discard it. This is the only way India can rise in every sphere: military, strategic, economic, and political, diplomatic. Let us hope this wisdom dawns on all of us who elect our representatives, and we are ultimately responsible for the type of leaders we have. So we need to be very, very selective in voting for a person. We should know the mindset of that person, and we should not vote merely on the basis of caste, creed, religion, region, language, or whatever. Those things should stop mattering now. What should matter is India's supreme interests. India's interests are supreme. Well, that's all for now. I'll come back again soon. Bye till then.